Well, hey everybody, back at this weird location with Apacies Beta 0.01. I did a lot more of quality of life updates when it comes to this, more than features, so I didn't feel like it deserved like a point 0.1, so it's 0.01. So some of the things that I was able to get done here were I added some historic locations. So I have this book. I have no idea how much or how good you can see this, but it involves a lot of different locations that would have been around, or historical locations that were in different eras of Arizona's history. There would be more historic locations that were active during the time, but these are ones that were still around by 1990 or so. So I added a few of those in. I have a number of them that I still want to, but I believe I added 3, maybe more, in different locations around the map as it stands. I also built up some of the routes a little bit more so they aren't as generic, something I want to constantly do. I also added Benson into the game. In my Pokemon tabletop, I did have Benson as like a stop-by town, maybe 3 houses at most. It was more of a ranching site, but it is an important area that I would like to explore in the game. And yeah, a good resting point between Tucson and Tombstone. So I want there to be multiple routes that you can travel, and that route as it stood was a lot of routes without any town intervening, so I wanted to add that in. I gave the Apacies specific battle particles when they entered the field, and so it isn't so generic and shooting everything off like they would moves when they enter battle. It's more of a colorful array to show off who all is in the battle. I updated the UI for battles so that it is easier to traverse, a little bit easier to look at. Like their health bars have changed, the menus have changed a little bit. It's mostly just aesthetics, but that's something I want to focus on more because it still looks kind of bad. I am definitely not an artist, so I'm having to work on UI a lot, and that's something that's coming more and more to mind. It's something that I can easily change, but it's time consuming, so it's something that I want to do and could feasibly do even if I'm swamped with work like I was over the last 2 months. Move descriptions I added, so when you're looking at your Apacies in the menu, you can go to their different moves, it populates with the moves that they currently know, and it'll give you a breakdown of what all that move can do. I want that information to be available to the player just so that they can make better informed decisions and understand what the moves are doing. It is something that Pokemon does, but it's one thing that I think it does well, is if you want the information, you can have it. I need to implement that for level up moves, so in the next update, hopefully, I should have that squared away so that you are able to look at a move and see what it does before you commit to it by level up. I also slowed down the attacking player. So there was a bug where you could just spam a move over and over again in between the enemy turns. So now I just made it so that the menu doesn't display unless it is your turn. You should be able to go nearly as fast, but I don't want spamming to happen where you're cheating the system going multiple times in a turn if you're fast enough. I don't want any botting for this. I did make progress towards dialogue trees and quests. I am following a tutorial that is honestly rather in-depth and is taking a long time, along with various bugs that I'm coming across that weren't mentioned in the tutorial that I'm having to fix. As of right now, the only fruit that has been bared with that advancement is only in my editor. I can set up dialogue trees, but I can't implement them yet. I'm still trying to follow that. But it should lead to a very nice dialogue and quest system that I'm hoping to implement. I'm hoping the dialogues next update, and hopefully quests the update after that, just to give me some more time to learn everything. But if I'm really good at it, maybe next update, but I don't see that quite happening. So speaking of next updates, there are a few things. I'm trying to do a lot of the simple but time-consuming things right now, as work will continue to ramp up until the end of this next update. So a lot of it's just simple things, but they should add a lot to the game. So sound prompts, I've been wanting to do this for a while, where like doors creak if you go through them, or menus have blips, blops, whatever you want to call them, to just get a little bit more feedback. Not really haptic unless you're using speakers, but something to let you know that something's happening, so that the game isn't as bland and there's at least something happening audibly besides the music. Same with fights. I want to implement it in fights, but that kind of sound effects I'm going to have to work on and figure out what the heck I want those to sound like. I do have ideas for the menu stuff already, and I have a sound pack that oddly works really well for the game, and I'm excited to implement that. I want to optimize menus, so I both have to do a lot of work on my editor to try and remember which menus are supposed to be on or off, and I need to be able to set it so that everything is on or off correctly whenever I need it to be at the start of a level. So I need to set that in place. It's a little bit of programming, it shouldn't be too much. I want to make it so that every menu, every button works exactly how I want it to. I know there's been a few instances where menus stay up or don't close or something weird happens, and I just want to fix all those while I can, while the menus are still relatively simplistic. Like I said, display the level up move description for that added intentionality for upgrades. I want one more new or overworld Apacies action. So right now they either chase or run away. I'm thinking of also implementing like a charge up and then burst forward in a straight line. That one would be weird to implement, but I think it'd be a little fun to try and dodge those. It's a simple little action, but it could give some added stress to a situation that helps excite the player in one way or another. And along with that, I want a sprint bar so you can't sprint infinitely, and a dodge or roll that will probably take away from the sprint bar, maybe it won't. Still thinking about that. So that you have some extra movement. Right now it's just walking or running, and there's no sprite difference between the two. So that's another thing. I'd like to get at least some basic sprites done so that it doesn't look so bad. Fixing named Apacies. A function that's been broken for quite some time has been, whenever you capture an Apacies with the Dreamcatcher, it asks you to set a name, but then the menu completely disappears and leaves whenever you type in anything. You still get the Apacies, which is why I haven't been worried about it, but eventually I do want you to be able to rename Apacies. So maybe there will be a one-time setting in the Apacies tab where you can rename Apacies instead of then and there at the moment. That way you can build up, get a feel for what this creature has been doing for you to be able to select a name, but it would only ever happen once and you would never be able to rename it. That's not a bad idea, and I just came up with that right now. I'm thinking I might go with that. And lastly, like I said, route optimization. I both want them to look nicer and to guide the player better rather than just being stagnant routes. The very basic thing that I've done is lay out well-traversed paths in every route so that you know you're at least heading towards an entrance or exit. But I feel like that's not enough, and I don't know what it's missing. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. Yeah, honestly, just let me know. For anything about this game. I'd love to hear what other people think when it comes to making games like this. One last thing that I've been trying to do is reduce health bars gradually so that it shrinks without interfering with a turn or anybody's turn. And oddly, that's been giving me a lot of trouble. Every solution I've seen online has not worked and has had various bugs. So I just have to keep going on that. It's honestly thrown me for a loop. I didn't expect it to be this difficult. But, if you haven't already, please support me on Patreon. Sometime soon, I'm looking to maybe get the Steam page up and running, but I'm not sure when, where, how, if. Check on in the game, test it for yourself. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.